Okay, we're now live. Welcome back. Next up, we've got a talk from Zoe Hughes. So she's presenting on behalf of the museumpests.net working group. Her talk is titled An International IPM Survey of Resources and Activities Conducted by museumpests.net working group. Thank you, and over to you, Zoe.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Yes, hello, I am Zoe Hughes. I am a paleontology curator at the Natural History Museum, and I'm presenting this work, as Alexandra said, on behalf of the museumpests.net group. So since the first meeting of the Museum Pests Working Group in 2002, the priorities have been guided by the results of occasional surveys in the field. In 2019, however, we conducted a worldwide survey to capture these recent trends, and some of these trends are what I'm going to talk to you about today. Okay, so we've definitely learned as much about the process of doing a survey as we did from the getting the results. Our team included curators, conservators, collection managers, conservation scientists, and pest management professionals. Just going to say, none of us are data scientists. We received quite complex data, and we were not able to answer all of our research questions. But what we did learn will definitely inform the design of our future surveys. Responses were received from institutions worldwide, although some of the data was difficult to interpret due to inconsistencies in the results, the specificity of the questions, and the number of open answer questions. We had an awful lot of open text field questions. In addition, the small number of respondents for some categories or answers resulted in data sets that were too small to allow meaningful interpretation. So please bear with us. Okay, so our research questions were these. Some of these might seem a little bit obvious, but we can't make assumptions, basically. So who is doing IPM? Can we see trends in the types of institutions? What resources have been put towards IPM, and have they changed over time? Our group believe that there are increased resources for an awareness of IPM, but have they had no impact? Can we see trends in how institutions are responding to the introduction of pest management programs? And is museumpests.net meeting the needs of our community? So we're hoping to learn how the field of cultural heritage IPM has changed and developed over the past 20 years since the group started. Okay, so growing awareness. We wanted to start by pointing out that we can see some important trends when we look at data from the Heritage Health Index projects of 2004 and 2014. And this tells us that an interest and awareness in IPM has seen a historical increase. For the 2014 data set, pest damage rises from 2 to 27%. While we cannot speculate about a rise in pest populations, potentially this can be attributed to increased awareness and vigilance in monitoring and maintaining pest-free environments. So who took this survey? We received responses from 377 institutions worldwide, and was distributed through various listservs and various communities and things. Our survey was in English, so the geographic distribution that you can see here in this map is not very surprising. We did receive the most responses from general and natural history museums, and the fewest from science and technology museums. Other geographical data surprised us. For example, all the historic house institution respondents were from the North American continent. Okay, so what types of institutions responded? Unsurprisingly, it's natural history museums and museums with natural history collections who are leading the way on IPM. We wanted to know if there was correlation between the type of institution, general annual budgets, and percentage of funding expended on pest management. However, the results were difficult to interpret because most respondents could not or did not report their institutional departmental budgets. But generally, less well-funded institutions have the lowest funding resources for IPM. This is also true for institutions with established IPM policies. From the data, we can also see that institutions with higher budgets for IPM and the percentage of institutions with IPM policies is correspondingly high at 90%. Oh, sorry. I've got too many screens. It's also seen that these institutions with larger budgets for IPM are more likely to have dedicated positions and bring in more external contractors. Okay, so who does IPM? Unsurprisingly, it's done mainly by collection staff, and that there are very few institutions with dedicated IPM staff positions or with individuals that maintain a pest applicator license. There's nothing especially surprising about any of this, but it is good to know we can't make assumptions. Obviously, we need to ask these questions. But are there any population trends? So we were quite keen to explore if there were noticeable trends in pest populations. For simplicity, we split the pests into these 6 groups. Analysing this data was really complex, compromised by how the questions were phrased. We also had numerical ranges that caused no end of problems. Depending where in the range that respondent was responding to, this could really affect the numerical results and produced very large errors, and it made it very difficult to interpret. Additionally, we asked for observational data over a staggered time frame. The vast majority of the responses with that were that there was insufficient data. Perhaps this is because the information requested was observation and remembrance rather than the use of actual data. Would it have been off-putting for responders to interrogate their records? Potentially, that's a very time-consuming exercise, if indeed they have these records. Quite a lot of people reported that they weren't keeping these records, which is also a little concerning. There does appear to be a slight increase in pest captures over this period of time, but whether this is due to increased vigilance and awareness or better recall of more recent pest evidence, we can't ascertain from this. Okay, how do people treat? Okay, so as you can see here, freezing is by far and away the most popular treatment method. There's a skew in the geographical distribution from government regulations. For example, no one in the UK or Australia reported the use of anoxic gases. Again, not surprising. Freezing is also cheap. So this may be a reflection on those institutions who don't have large budgets for dedicated IPM positions and external IPM contractors. Indeed, one respondent that I recall from going through the data took material home and used her own personal freezer. In addition to that, on terms of the budget, those with higher budgets are more inclined to use anoxia, which does suggest a financial barrier to performing such treatments. Okay, where are people looking? Where are they actually trapping? Obviously, IPM is a holistic exercise. It's a little bit concerning that quite large percentages of institutions are only monitoring in those obvious areas, for example, collection spaces. Clearly, these are vital to monitor, but in order to get that holistic situation, the other areas are also very important. We also saw that 50% of responders reported that they never treat the external areas or that they aren't responsible for this. This, coupled with institutions only monitoring collections and exhibition spaces, does suggest the need to emphasise exclusion strategies in awareness training. Okay, so our conclusions. We're using IPM. Yes, so we've spent quite a lot of time trying to map and understand this complex data, and we think we've seen the following trends. We are using IPM in our approach to control pest populations. Many institutions have invested time and effort in creating policies, procedures, and guidelines to limit pest activity. Funding for IPM activities still appears to be low. We lack museum professionals who are educated in pest management at an academic or licensed level. IPM tasks are performed mainly by collection staff. However, we see many mid-sized institutions contracting pest management work, so this may be an area where we want to explore alliances with pest control professionals. And events like this are obviously great. We've got professionals here, we've got amazing sponsorship from professionals, so this is a good start. Knowing that low temperature is the predominant treatment choice for collections, and anoxia has geographical and fiscal limitations, we can tailor how we present information on the Museum Pest Solutions pages. We may need to indicate on our website what solutions are available or legal in different areas of the world. The cultural heritage community relies on online resources for pest management information. We need to ensure that under-resourced institutions know about our site. So please spread the word, museumpests.net. We were also unable to draw any irrefutable conclusions from our data about increases or decreases in pest activity, or whether IPM is making inroads in helping to control pest populations in cultural heritage collections.
About 5 minutes.
Fab, thank you. We realised that we could have constructed the survey with much more clarity and specificity. For example, we chose to allow open text answers to many questions, and the results were really difficult to quantify and also include in our data sets. We also neglected to ask some quite basic questions that now seem obvious. We also wondered if there might be another way to collect data about pest increases and pest response. If you have any suggestions, please get in touch. We learned a lot using Tableau to visualize our data, and we look forward to presenting some more nuanced analysis in our future presentations. And in future years, we'll integrate what we've learned into another survey. But I think I can speak for all of the group. We've sort of had enough of this survey for now, so that's very much for the future. Hang on. Oh, and thank you very much for everyone. I'm sure an awful lot of you took time to respond to our survey. And thank you to all of my collaborators. I just want to note, if you've got really specific questions about Tableau, please contact us outside of this, because myself and Suzanne were not the people who did all the Tableau magic, so we probably can't answer your questions. Brilliant.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting. And Zoe and Sue and the other speakers from this morning are going to join us over in the Q&A session, which will be starting in about 4 minutes' time.